everyone. Welcome back to the Bellevue Club Swim Team podcast. We're super excited today to have Megan Oesting. She is a PNS legend, Mercer Island legend, National Age Group Coach of the Year. And we're very excited to have her on the show today. Megan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Awesome. Well, with all our guests, we would love for you to kind of talk to us about how you grew up in our sport and what you're doing now.
Yeah, super. So I started swimming lessons at Wedgwood, which I think is the Ash District.
It's like 2 blocks from where I stand as we speak.
Yes. So that's my childhood is Wedgwood. What's
already
that?
Something I didn't know.
Yeah. So I lived on, I think maybe like 96th. And so we would either bus south or walk south. And it was like our babysitter in the summer. We joined when I was 5. My mom was pregnant with my brother. His birthday is like 3 days after mine. So my 5th birthday, we got a Wedgwood membership and we did lessons, and I did synchronized swimming there. And I do have evidence of that. I loved it. And I did mini swim team there. And mini swim team was like the first time I realized I was an intense little kid. Me and my friend Molly were going in the widths, Ash, right? In the middle of the pool. And we were 1s and 2s. And so we, of course, were together. And she was a 1 and I was a 2. And they moved the 1s over first. And my world was just rocked. I mean, I thought like, well, this can't happen. I don't understand why I'm a 2, But I had my first taste of swim team there. And, I learned about what the lanes were, and I learned that the colors of ribbons had some, everything you do in like your summer swim team. I ate Jell-O dry, and I ran around in my suit for 18 hours a day, and Wedge was the greatest. And then I joined Cascade when I was 8, and we actually had moved. I don't know, it's up the hill from Montlake, so you go over the bridge, and then you go up that hill, and at the top, I lived up there when I was 8 and 9. And so when I joined Cascade, I would take the city bus down to the interchange by the transfer station by the hospital. And then we would either go to Meadowbrook or Green Lake, depending on what day of the week it was. And I would just take myself and my backpack that my mom says was bigger than I was. And I would bus to school. Actually, at that point, I went to St. Monica's. Right up the street, and so I would take the bus from there to whichever pool I was supposed to get to him, and then one of my parents would come pick me up after practice. So 8 and 9, I had Wayne Sells and Tom Pardee.
Tom Pardee.
Yes.
Who was the Megan? Who was the head coach at that time? It wasn't Jim Pulio, was it?
No, it was right before Jim got there. And it was, Scott Trips.
Yeah.
Was the head coach at the time. And then Jim Pulio got there so my parents moved. So this was during when the Seattle public schools were going on strike all the time. And they were going to bus everybody everywhere. And my parents said, no can do, like with their schedule. And I think I was going to go south, like to Mount Rainier, and my sister was going to go north up to maybe Roosevelt's up there. It was just a mess. And then I have a brother who's 5 years younger than me. So we moved when right after I turned 10, and we moved to Mercer Island for the schools, and we lived 3 blocks from the Mary Waite pool. And then, and so I switched to Chinook then. And Craig Weishar was my coach, and he was fantastic for me. Fantastic. We had the best age group, not the best. We had such a wonderful age group experience. It was me. It was Tom Campbell, Uwer Tanner, Ashley Cohen.
Scott Florsheim.
Scott Florsheim. Thank you. I mean, this group was so fun. We had what I would say is the epitome of an age group swimming experience, where Craig was funny, but with boundaries, and he wrote up improvement ribbons for us by hand after every meet. So every time you got a best time, he would write the event, the old time, the new time, and how many best times you got, and he would give us We got a rosette every time we hit 10. So, and then at like 60, we got plaques. And he did all that on his own. It was his idea with his own money.
Pre-internet.
I feel
with no, like, I'm going into the swims database to figure it out.
No, exactly. Like, this is the
I
olden
feel like
days.
such a failure.
That guy was so invested. And I think that's like the best thing you can have in an age group coach is someone who's having fun with their kids and invested in their experience. And I had that. I'm so lucky. And then when I was, so I made my first junior national cut right before my birthday when I was 12. So my birthday is in May. And so we would go up to the Hayak meet. And it was like, 5 days before my birthday. So I made my first junior national cut in 100 free. And I needed to get moved up so that I could be with Jack Ridley, who's amazing. He like raised me. And he was gonna, I was gonna be in his group for the summer during that transition. And that was hard for me, not because of Jack. It was just hard for me because I really liked my friends.
How old were you when you went into the senior group?
I think it was like the week after I qualified. So like essentially on my 13th birthday.
Yeah. So pretty young.
Really young. Yeah. Really young. And I would say I was intimidated, although I was also a little bit confused. I think this is when I started actually sort of figuring out that I was a little bit different, not in a good or bad way, but just that I thought about things a little bit differently. I think it was like the first week I was there and I was in a lane with some high school girls, and one of them said to me, Megan, if you just make whitewater with your feet, like if you just make splashes with your feet, he'll think you're kicking and trying hard, and he won't he won't yell at you, or he won't like say anything to you. And I don't know what my face looked like probably like it looks like now, like what? Why would I like try to do something to make it look like I'm trying to do something when I could just try to do something that's actually going to make me faster? Like I was so confused. I was like, I don't know. I think I'm going to have to do this on my own. Like this is going to be something that I do my way, because I'm not sure I'm going to fit in here, And the older people, especially the older guys, were super nice to me. They kind of took me under their wings. So
you swam with Andy Lloyd, didn't you?
Andy Lloyd, yes. Andy Lloyd was in my group. He was actually my carpool buddy for morning practice. And Pete Rogers, who currently, I think he lives in Africa and makes sushi or something. He was from Moses Lake. Yeah.
Those are two things I would never put together.
They both drove yellow VW bugs. Yeah, I mean, they were interesting, wonderful people. And I was really brought up by those guys. And they had a really good junior, senior class. And so when we would go to junior nationals, my first junior nationals, we had 7 guys, and Andy was part of that group, and they were a powerhouse group. And I think if I would have scored a point, I think we would have won the meet.
Were you the only girl? You were the only girl?
I was the only girl.
Let me guess. Let me guess. You didn't score points.
I didn't score points. I got like 86th, and I was trying so hard. I mean, these guys were nice to me. They were nice to me, and they didn't have to be. And I knew it, and I really wanted to do a good job for them. I sprained my ankle a month before, and so I actually swam with my ankle taped. So I couldn't get off the blocks, and I couldn't kick. Not that I was a good kicker anyway, but I just wasn't at my best for them, and I hated that. And I felt bad, but even then they were so nice to me. Like, they would rib me a little bit, but there was never any malice. And yeah, so I burst on the scene at junior nationals, like falling on my face backwards and tripping over myself. and then in the spring at Brown Deer, then I won the 100 free, and that's kind of a funny story, because I didn't actually make the 50 free cut. I had no speed. My stroke was so bad. It's ironic that I'm so into technique right now, or maybe it's not, because I know it matters, and I know I didn't have it. I think I needed it. And so anyway, I qualified in the 100 through the mile, and then some other stuff that I wasn't as good at, like the 400 IM or something. And Jack and all the friends from Pacific Northwest Swimming. So side note, Pacific Northwest Swimming coaches were so tight with each other. They were like a team too. And I always felt cared for, not just by Jack, but by all the coaches in Pacific Northwest Swimming. They were all there for me, and they all wanted me and everyone else to succeed. Part of that had to do with Coleman and how we were all on deck together. Nobody jumped teams. You know, we would swim with Jerry Johnston. He was at Issaquah at the time. And, you know, we were 6 to 8 and 8 to 10 and 10 to 12, and you'd always overlap with friends. And anyway, so Jack was talking to the other coaches saying, like, what should I put her in, the mile or the 100 for her last event? And I was seated higher in the mile. And for some reason, he said I could do the 100. And so the 1,000 was the first day. And I think I got like something in the teens, and it was the best time. And that was great. And then it was the 200, and I did something in the teens, and that was the best time, and yay. And then I swam the 500, and same thing. And then the last day was going to be the 100 free. And I was just, you know, having a good meet. So there it is. And I made finals, and I think I was like in lane 2 or something. And I distinctly remember that swim coming into the 50 and being dead last because I had no speed. And halfway down the pool on the 3rd length, I distinctly remember saying to myself, you aren't that far behind, but if you're going to try to do something here, if you want to be like on that, if you want to be top 3 on the podium, you had better make a move like right stinking now. And you better start sprinting because that's your only shot. So I just, you know, the sprint that some kids do, like from 5 yards into the wall. I just did it there. I just sprinted, and I didn't know what was happening around me. I was like, I'm going to try. So I did, and I won. And there are very few moments in my swimming career where I was surprised, because I always set goals so high for myself that it was probably kind of unlikely that I was going to get what I wanted. This one didn't have a goal to it. I was just purely in the moment. And I felt like a gift had like descended on me. Like I was probably the most surprised person in the room. And I think everybody else was pretty surprised, but I felt it like in my body. I felt that gratitude and like awestruck at that I got to have that experience. And I think that feeling is always sort of carried with me. Like when things go well, I'm so thankful, because there's just, I mean, we all know it right now. Nothing is a guarantee, and no one deserves anything. There's people that, you know, you would say like, well, they work so hard, they deserve this, or they, you know, they try, or they put in the work, and so they deserve. And I never felt like I deserved anything. And so like all the successes that I've ever had have always felt like gifts to me. And that was my first experience feeling like I was just so thankful. So yeah, so I swam for Chinook and, you know, did stuff after that.
Can I ask you something before you
Yeah.
get too far ahead?
Yeah.
Hey, first of all, Craig did say you were the hardest worker he ever coached.
That's important to me. Thank you. That means a lot, actually.
He did say that. But I wanted to ask you about one swim in particular. I remember I had just started high school swimming, or high school coaching, and I was like 21 or something. I think you were a senior.
Okay.
It was when you set the state record for the 50 free. I think you went like 23-2 or something.
Oh yeah, I remember that swim. Yeah. That was a strange season.
But you completely missed your turn on that. Do you remember that?
My 100. I missed my turn.
Was it the 100? Yes. Okay.
It was. It was so bad.
And you still set the state record and got a best time and all that.
I know, but not. It was bad. Oh God. So that season was really bad because we lost. We lost Mary Waite for 2 months, and I was training with Craig's group at the country club twice a week because he let me, and thank goodness for Craig. And our practices at Odell had 16 people in a lane, for an hour and a half. And we kicked and we did 25s. And actually, I didn't want to swim the 50 because I'm not good at the 50. And Jack pulled me aside in mid-October at Odell when we were getting 3,000 yards of nothing in. And he said, I don't think you should swim the 200 free at state. And I just, my heart kind of sank. But I knew he was right. I knew I didn't have my base was gone. And, but I didn't know how to, so I was a little bit scared because I didn't know how to swim the 50. And those of you that have seen me swim, like, I have no streamline. I have no underwater dolphin kick. My turns are bad. Like, a 50 is not my jam. And so he said, off the wall, he said, get up on the water. And he said, you need to hit your turn, duck under the wave as fast as you can, and get out of there. Don't try to stay down. He said, you don't have it. And I was like, yeah, I don't have it. And so that was the flailiest, spazziest 50 free I think I've ever done. And I got that state record by 2 100ths. And that, again, I honestly feel that I was so lucky, because it could have easily been I went a 23:17. It could have been a 23:20, 2:1, 2:7, whatever. And I don't know, the things went well in that one. And then in the 100, I missed my first turn. And I remember watching you, and you're like, you got nothing off the first turn. I'm always so bad at turns. Like, so my first missed turn actually was at Far West when I was 10 in the 200 free, and I missed it entirely. And I didn't go back to the wall, and I got disqualified. Who gets disqualified in a 200 free? Yeah. Like, you got to be exceptional to get disqualified in the 200 free. And indeed I was, because I missed my turn and I didn't even touch the wall, but I didn't know what to do. Like, this isn't really a topic of conversation. Like, what do you do? What should you tell a kid preemptively if they miss their freestyle turn? So I missed that. And that's kind of the same thing that happened. I don't know. I think I have vision problems, undiagnosed perception depth issues, because I love long course because I didn't have to deal with that, and I could just go. And then if I missed a turn, at least I could, like, make up for it somehow. So, yeah. And I didn't really do anything. Like, after I kind of did the junior national thing, things just kind of went forward from there. So, yeah, I don't know.
So obviously, with you having great success through your age group years, you ended up at UCLA. Our program is very familiar with that program right now. We have a lot of girls there, and we have a lot of women there.
Go Bruins!
Talk to us about your college experience, and as you kind of make that transition from age group to college and now into coaching as a very successful coach.
Yeah, so I think the biggest transition for me was communicating. I was very self-driven, and then I was very internal. And I still am. It's very much my personality to, when I problem solve, to go inside and try to figure out how I'm going to fix it or get better. And I came in trying to do everything myself. We didn't have dry land back then. Like, that wasn't a part of swim teams. And so in high school, I just made up my own stuff, and I would do 10 sets of 40 push-ups and 10 sets of 40 sit-ups a day before practice, because I just, right? Like, no one would prescribe that. But dry land wasn't,
most people wouldn't even do it. Well, much less prescribe it.
Right. So, I was just making things up. Like, if I want to be faster, I feel that, like, the things I had going for me was that I do have a really good feel for the water. I know how to water bend, I was abnormally strong, and, well, physically, but also, like, mentally. So I tried to sort of bring that, my MO, into UCLA. and we started lifting weights. And I mean, I walk by a rack and like put on a pound of muscle, like looking at it. Like my freshman year, I gained 10 pounds and lost 1% body fat. And I'm telling you, I already didn't have a streamline. I'm 5'6" if I'm wearing decent shoes. And I'm just really not a swimmer body type. You know, it's, you would not build a swimmer to look like me. And so the fall, I was still, and I did get hardest worker that year. So that was good. But I did it wrong. You know, I just threw myself into everything that I was supposed to do. And I didn't communicate. I didn't collaborate. I didn't do the things that brought me to where I was successful. You know, that freshman year, I didn't find the middle ground of how it is to participate in a college team environment with the give and take and communication that's required with young adult swimming. That my freshman year was learning about myself in the context of a team. Whereas before I just needed to know about myself, and I could do, you know, I swam Jack's practices as hard as I could. And, you know, he had, you know, decently spacious send-off, so I could kind of sprint everything. And then, you know, Cindy came from a Schubert background, right? So I would still sprint everything, but I couldn't hang. Like recovery, you know, the next day it could have been ugly. And you know, like one day I was over in the distance lane because I could make those send-offs, but the next day I was over there again, and she said, "Who shot the girl in lane 2?" And she was right. I was like, I don't know how to do this program. You know, I don't know how to do it. So like Jack and Pulio were really good friends. And sometimes we would go down to Gresham and like train with him a day before a meet or something. And his program was the polar opposite of Jack's. And so I would sprint everything in Jack's practice, and maybe it would total 5,500 or $6,000 on a really big day. And Pulio was going 7K like clockwork. And so they gave a set where it was hundreds on tight send-offs. And if I'm doing hundreds, then I want to hold, you know, we were doing meters, and I would like to hold between like 103 and 106 for myself. That's just, you know, everybody lands in different places, but his send-offs were 115. I was still trying to hold 103 to 106. And I just vomited in the gutter. So that's kind of what I brought to Cindy's program, is a little bit of vomit and naivety, you know, like, I don't know how to do this. So my time at UCLA taught me how to communicate, how to be on a team, how to learn.
Adapt.
Yeah. You know, like my third, fourth, fifth year in the spring, I played water polo, and that was also, it was such a wonderful experience. And I mean, I have so many stories about that, but just to this point, learning how to be on a team when you're actually doing the thing with them, it just expanded my perception, like, even more on how to be a team player. And that was really the impact of UCLA. Was, yes, you got to work hard, but that's not enough. You need to work hard. You need to communicate. You need to collaborate. And you need to understand how you thrive in the context of a team. And that when you thrive and contribute, everybody else thrives and contributes. And that's what UCLA is to me, is really growing up as a teammate, you know, and as an individual that can make people better while making myself better.
Love it. So you're a head coach now of your own program.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that. Where did the transition come from? I know that Ash tried to lure you once upon a time as well.
Couple times.
I love Ash. Well, so So I had been out of coaching for quite a while when I moved to Seattle. I in 2002, I had moved to New Zealand, and my husband got a job, and we thought that would be a fun adventure. Only I was 6 months pregnant at the time. And I guess I don't recommend that sort of adventure. Like I think maybe I thought pretty highly of my agility skills. But so when I moved down there, and of course I wasn't coaching, and then I had my daughter in July, and then in December we found out that she was deaf. And I had just actually gone down to the pool there to talk to them about coaching. And it was the next week that I figured out that she couldn't hear anything. And so, so from about a year after that, we moved back to the States. We moved to the Maryland School for the Deaf. They had a bilingual program, so ASL and English at the same time. And so we enrolled her in there. We were there for about 3 years. And, you know, my time was her speech therapy. The parent group was in sign language. Our church group was in sign language. It was sometimes interpreted for the hearing, but not always. So I had to get going. I had to get to stepping really hard, really fast, because, you know, I just felt like I got this, my daughter's depending on me, you know, for a good life. And if I just went back to what I learned in swimming. I need to work my butt off, and I need to do it smart and collaboratively, and no one's coming. Like, if you guys seen that show Working Moms, it's out now. I just watched the last season, and the husband of the main character, every time the mom like makes kind of a sketchy decision, he says, you know, hon, no one's coming, you know. And I don't know if you've seen that show, it's classic. But for me, like, that's kind of how I felt with my daughter. No one's coming. And this is on me. And if I am going to give her a good life, I had better work my butt off. And so I did. And when she was 5, we moved to Arizona for about 6 months. And that's where I got divorced. And so I did the walk of shame to my mom's house in Issaquah. Thank God for my mom, who took in me and my 5-year-old and my 2-year-old. And that's actually when I met Ash. So Jack was still coaching Chinook at the time. And I went to go see him at the pool because he's like my father figure. And he said, I'll see you in the morning, 5:15, practice starts. And I'm like, well, I haven't swam. I haven't touched the water in years. Like, and I'm like having a legit hard time right now. Like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I got 2 kids. I got nothing. This is not where I thought I would be. And the last thing I want to do is go to swim practice. Like, I got to do bigger things, you know? And he's like, I'll see you in the morning. I'm like, I can't. So I went to practice in the morning, and we did 10 100s on 2 minutes. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack on number 5. And it felt good. And I didn't have a heart attack, thank God. And for the next 3 years, I kind of became the person that I am now, you know, with my kids running around on the pool deck. You know, Ash saw Diggory and his chubby little belly, and Mia jumping off the diving board and follow me around and hanging out in the lifeguard shed, eating Fruit Loops and watching cartoons. And when I came back there, I felt so, that place is my family. Like, they took care of me when I needed to be taken care of. And it all comes back to my swimming, to the family of my age group years, to the family of my high school years. You know, the relationship that we had in swimming, wasn't like, I didn't feel like I belonged because I was fast. I felt like I belonged because we were up to swimming together, and that really came back for me. So so after 3 years, when my daughter was 8 and my son was 5, that's when I actually felt like I was on my feet and I could start coaching again. So that's when I moved out here to be a head coach.
That's awesome.
That was a really long answer.
No, that's great.
So from what we all know about you as a coach, and a lot of, it seems like, and you can kind of speak to this, but just hearing you talk about your own swimming career, it seems like your coaching goals were to fill in the gaps that you never had. And that's not to criticize Jack Ridley, but the sport has certainly evolved. You and I are similar in age. I think the sport has certainly evolved since the late 80s, early 90s. So talk a little bit about that and how kind of your values as a coach were formed. Mm-hmm. And then we'll talk about teaching private lessons in a treadmill in a second.
Yeah, in endless pool,
those two things connect.
Yeah, so my coaching philosophy, you know, of course, was influenced by Craig and by Jack and by Cindy, and a lot of it comes from the way that I engaged in swimming is really the way that I engage in coaching. You know, I try to find leverage. I try to find the gaps that I can move through. Have you guys read that book, David and Goliath, that Malcolm Gladwell book? Highly recommend it. I am a David. Like, I see things differently, and using my perspective to kind of crack the code. Like, you know, that last scene in The Matrix where, you know, he doesn't see the guy anymore. He sees the code, the green and the black code back there. That's what I'm trying to do in swimming. Like, I kind of stand back from what I did and what I saw friends do in different programs, and I try to crack the code on where is the leverage, what matters. And I think that the number one thing that matters is engagement. Like, I mean, that's talent code 101, is pay attention to what you're doing. Are you invested? Are you deliberately engaged? And so my program is really rooted in engagement and the conversation between me and the athletes. We are doing this together, and I am engaged, and we are in conversation the whole practice. So there's the bridge that has to be there, and then I think it's the content that goes over the bridge. So when I think about my coaching philosophy, I need a conduit, and then I need to choose the highest margin of return things to put through that conduit, because it's not infinite. You know, we have 2 hours a day. They have their own experience, their own mindset. They are their own sponges or buckets, and some big buckets or sponges are more porous than others. And so it takes a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, and staying in tune with what the next move is and what's the highest margin thing that I can teach or push right now is I guess that really sums up my coaching philosophy. What can I do to get more, to get better right now? And so I have a curriculum that I think covers what I value most in terms of the breadth of swimming. And so I'm spiraling through that. And then on my season plan, I try to go broadly to what I think the next development step is. So like underwater dolphin kick, or, you know, the catch as you're pivoting or whatever. And then every day I go in there and I tap dance my little heart out. And I tell them, I said, if I would stand on my head and do, you know, pirouettes in a dumpster, and that would make you go faster, then that is what I will do. What is it? What do you need me to do? Because I'll do it, but you got to do it too, you know? So the kids that have said, I'm going to work as hard as you do. I'm as nerdy about this as you are having a lot of success. And even if you're not quite engaged yet, the curriculum and the programming is going to take care of a heck of a lot, you know? So my coaching philosophy has to do with making sure everybody's taken care of, and then, you know, dancing as fast and hard as I can to give these kids their moment. I think the thing that I really want to give them is that moment after the 100 free at juniors when I was 13, where I was surprised with myself. And I didn't know I could do that. I did not know that I could do that. And when I see them have those moments where they did not know they could shine that bright, and they did, and now they think differently of themselves, that is why I do what I do. To lift them up and to get them to look at themselves and say, I can do stuff. And so it might be like when they become a programmer when they're older, or when they are in a sales job or whatever they do later in life, they're going to know that if they walk through a process of learning and vulnerability, they're probably going to come out the other end being pretty proud of themselves and feeling that level of self-respect and satisfaction that they learned how to do in swimming. That's what I would like them to say in 20 years about what they got from my program.
How much of kind of hearkening back to that freshman girl who didn't collaborate and didn't communicate do you have in the back of your mind with your own athletes? And what do you do to kind of pull those things out of people? Because that's a learned skill too, right? It's not just can you pivot on your catch? It's can you feel it? Can you then tell me about it? Can you communicate what you're feeling? How do you elicit that from your kids? And for you as a coach, how much of that skill was learned doing one-on-ones in an endless pool with swimmers here?
Yeah, so
it was a big question.
Yeah, that was a big question. I'm going to start with the endless pool lessons, and then we can circle back if I miss anything.
Okay.
What I really learned teaching private lessons in the endless pool was to listen really well, to listen to their bodies and to listen to the water around them, and to listen to their feedback and ask questions that allowed them to sort of find themselves on the map, you know, because it doesn't matter how much I know. It matters how much they understand internally about what's going on. And some people are super in tune, and they, you know, they're Caleb Dressel with like, if I slightly bend my pinky on the outside and spread it out a little bit wider, I'm gonna, you know, like some people are like that. Yeah. And some people are not. And so it doesn't matter what I know. It matters that I can help them place themselves and then expand their perspective from where they stand. And so in the endless pool, what I really got out of those, you know, 10,000 hours was to listen and to go to them where they are, and then show them a little bit more from where they stand and ask them to move into it. And that's really what my lesson plan is all the time for everybody in the endless pool. So I think that came into my coaching perspective with my team, kind of like how swimming moved to water polo. You know how swimming is like, it's just one and it's really direct, and water polo is like organized chaos. I feel like coaching swimming and playing water polo, coaching a team environment and playing water polo are similar, and being a swimmer and coaching in an endless pool are similar. So the amount of perspective I need to have, my perspective on what's going on where, all over the pool and with many, many different people, is something that I learned in water polo. That, you know, like I'm much more of an introvert than an extrovert, but in water polo, you have to be an extrovert. You got to work with real time, engaged. You got to know what's going on, and you got to anticipate with a group of people that are not in your own head.
And communicate with them verbally and non-verbally.
Exactly. And that to me is deck coaching. That's group coaching. Yes. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You and I have had conversations about that before, but I think that's what makes a good deck coach versus a good private lessons coach. Some people are really good at listening and having that one-on-one depth of conversation from where that one person is. And some people are really, really good at water polo, at that mindset, and I didn't start off being good. I'd never played water polo. So I know Mid Lakes has water polo now, but we didn't have water polo then. So, I mean, I think there was like a 2-week thing at Mercerwood. Oh yeah. So shout out to Mercerwood, shout out to the country club. Shout out to Newport Hills, right?
I was going to say, you haven't said Newport Hills yet.
I know. So when I was, for my 3 years, when my kids were little, we lived at the townhomes across from Newport Hills. So my neighbor had 5 girls, and one of them was like 15 or something. So no, 17 was the oldest. And so we would go to bed in my townhome. And when she finished her homework, she would come over and sleep on the couch in the living room. And I would wake up and go to morning practice. And then I would come home, wake her up, and then start doing all the mommy things. So that's how I swam at Newport Hills. And then I had a babysitter for Saturday morning practice who was a lifeguard there. And so that's when they would eat their Fruit Loops and watch cartoons. They were in the lifeguard room with a babysitter lifeguard, and while I was doing practice. So that's actually how that went down. So shout out to Newport Hills. And yeah, so like the real time collaboration of it was hard for me. When I got in spring quarter of my junior year, I was taking a class that I had to take for my major, and it conflicted with 2 days a week of swim team. And I didn't want to do that, but I was sort of running out of options. Like I couldn't take the other classes for my major unless I had this class. And, it's a big school, but that one time that was my only option. And so it wasn't even UCLA water polo. It was a club water polo team down the street at the time. And so I went there and just got my butt kicked, but I was in the water and I wanted to be, and that was fun. And then my senior year is actually when they started the UCLA water polo team that fall. And they brought in some water polo players who were pretty good. And that fall quarter, I split time swimming and playing water polo. Winter quarter, I only swam, and then I graduated. I was done with my swimming career. And then that spring, I just played water polo. And that's really when I kind of learned. My 5th year, we got another batch of recruits. And by this time, the men's head water polo coach was now our coach. And he was the Olympic team coach at the time as well. And I was blessed with amazing people around me that knew how to collaborate, that knew how to communicate, that knew how to do this amoeba type thing, this group flow thing. And so it was me, 4 national team players, a national junior team player, and our goalie was the national team goalie. And I tell you what, I did what I was told. I went where I needed to go, and I did my very best. And I tried to pass to people that really knew what they were doing as much as I possibly could. And we figured out where I could contribute. I didn't end up a 1-trick pony, maybe a 3-trick pony. But my teammates were so amazing, and they knew how to help me shine. Even though I wasn't like them, they got what I had to offer, and we won our first national championship at UCLA in water polo that year. And it was because they helped me and put me in situations where I could contribute. That felt really good.
Hey Megan, you talked about how you came from Jack's program, and you were training and maybe a little bit more rest, maybe not as much yardage, faster swimming, and then you went to UCLA, different. Where did you fall after when you began coaching? Where did you fall in between those two kind of training philosophies? And also, how do you reconcile that with private lessons and the the endless swimming and, you know, having them swim perfect during private lessons, and then the training and how.
Yeah, good question. So I'm probably going to have to circle back to some of this too. So in terms of like the Jack versus Cindy spectrum, when I first started coaching a senior program, not the age group program, I started coaching for Chinook like a little bit when I was home, like trying to be an actuary, which, I'm really not a good actuary. Really, actually, kind of a below average actuary. But I kept coaching afterwards. I was coaching like the red blue, you know, squad at Chinook after work, and that was all about technique. I wanted to teach them. But when I became a head coach, I coached a little bit when I was like 24, 25, 26, before I had my daughter. And I was actually like very Schubert-y. I wanted to work. Yeah, I wanted to work. Hey, get it done, you know? So like my dryland self kind of came out like, let's go harder and let's push and let's like, And that was, I knew it wasn't my personality. Like I knew it was an aspect of who I was going to be as a coach. But I knew I wasn't a very good coach in my 20s, like before I, you know, stopped and raised my daughter. I was not a very good coach. I didn't communicate well from that standpoint. I wasn't teaching as much as I liked. I wasn't happy because I wasn't being as creative and techniquey as fulfills me, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to organize myself. I didn't know how to govern the communication in this context. I had to learn that too, again. And so now I settle into what I feel like is the best of both worlds for me. Like I am extremely techniquey and we go hard.
Yeah.
And so I've definitely married the two and enveloped us sort of under an umbrella of communication that's empowering. And so I feel like I finally figured out how to coach this past run. I did a good job. There's many times where I did not do a good job. So I feel like I'm being true to myself, and I'm giving what I want to give, and I'm experiencing what I want to experience. And then, so the endless pool lessons, what did you want to know about that?
Well, I was just like, you know, you're doing private lessons and you're doing the endless pool, and it's probably more of a technique-y kind of thing. And I'm just curious, you know, when they go back and they're getting after it in their practices.
Yeah.
You know, how picky are you when they're doing that?
Really stinking picky.
Still in their ear.
She's in your ear.
What's that, Ash? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm in their ear. Yeah.
Still in their ear.
I am. And so I give them an opportunity. Like, so the first 3 minutes, you know, they get to play. The deal is they get on time and I won't bother them. We'll just collaborate. I'll tell a joke or whatever. I'll just read the room during those first 3 minutes.
Well,
and then I do 12.
Megan, hold on.
What?
For our viewers and our listeners, everyone, this person right here is the one that created my swim ears. So when we brought that in for our team, this is the creator. This is the person who originated all that. So go ahead.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah. So, I mean, and the story behind that comes a little bit from my daughter. And
I was just about to ask that.
Yeah, it really did. So, you know, when we were at Maryland School for the Deaf, you know, they talk about language a lot and the access of language and communication. And when kids are cut off from language, not only are they missing the content, but they're missing the pathways to form the scaffolding for more and more abstract ideas. And I honestly, I feel like that's how we did swimming before my swimmers. I feel like they're all deaf and I can't talk to them. There's this giant divide between a coach standing on deck and the swimmers actually doing the thing in the water. And I feel like what I'm doing in swimming is like the equivalent of, you know, bringing language to people that are like, they can't hear but don't know ASL, You know, like what communication is communication. Like ASL is just as deep and rich and maybe more complex than English. But if you're deaf and you don't have ASL, you don't have access. So how are you going to learn what everybody else has access to? You know, if you open that portal, then, you know, someone who's deaf can do anything just like anybody else. You know, the limits are just blasted through when you have access. You know, so in the deaf community, access is the pivot point, not English, access. So, 'cause they can do anything. There's nothing wrong with the brain. It's all thriving in there, but it's like walled off. And so I feel like that's how swimmers were before my swimmers. They're having their conversation with the water. Don't get me wrong. And there's a lot of conversation that you can have with your body and with the water. And you need to learn to have that. Some people are more intuitive about it. I feel like that's where my intuition helped me thrive, is because I was having a conversation with the water the whole time. I was listening to my body the whole time. I was very engaged with that. But not everybody comes to that naturally. And so being able to take the ceiling off and give them access to what's going on in there, I think has been huge. I think it changes the game entirely. So the first 12 minutes of practice is a clinic where I'm teaching a thing, you know, whether it's a catch or a breaststroke kick or body position or how to body shift, how to weight shift, how far is too much, at what point do I lose my balance, what happens when I do this and what happens when I do this and whatever, so some experimenting. And then the next set is a progression from our learning point into your stroke. So we don't do drills like, you know, touch your head 3 times and squirt a bubble out your mouth. Like, do something, create a Lego piece that is in the Lego structure that you're building. Make sure you know you have the piece. Go find the piece and then put it in. And then can you deploy your little robotics project? And that's what that second set is about, is put that piece in and notice why it's there. Why would I care? Why would I spend an entire 30 minutes of practice trying to give you this piece if I didn't think this piece was going to be valuable to what your, you know, robotics thing can do? And so there's purpose. There's technical purpose to be applied, you know? So I majored in math, but I actually majored in applied math, because it's one thing to theoretically know stuff. Like, you know, sometimes you go to clinics and you hear these theories on how things should be done. And then you got to go home and do something with it, with these people standing in front of you, which may not be at all similar to the people that they got this theory from. So this application is what we go for in the second set. And then as we cycle through sets in the training program, I expect you to go and hold tight. And I do not want you falling apart, because if the Lego falls out of the robot, now the robot can't do what it's supposed to do. So you have to have the Lego in the robot. They have to have that piece if you're going to do it, you know, come in at a certain time. It's like, it's as simple as a streamline. If I'm going to teach a streamline for the first half hour, and then you know, you push off past the flags and you take one less stroke and your time is a second and a half faster, and then we do 20/50s and you decide that you're not going to streamline, and I'm going to say that you have to hold the time you just showed me you could hold. Well, I know you can hold it, but I'm going to turn the heat up, and I do expect you to hold it while I turn the heat up. And I'm not like mean or anything. Like, I know when it's too hot. I know when it's too hot in the kitchen. Like, I just want to try to set it at a point where they are, you know, they're getting enough heat that the iron can melt into the structure, and we can actually have that as a part of our vehicle. You know what I mean? So I am all about hard work, and I am all about pushing, and I am all about technique. And I don't think it has to be mutually exclusive anymore, because you can talk to them and you can be with them, and there's no barrier. There's no ceiling on us anymore.
I love your analogies.
Yeah, I think well, I told you I'm like a little bit different. Like, that's how actually like what goes on in my head. So I'm actually telling you real things right now.
I love it. I love it.
These are my thoughts.
There we
go.
go.
You're in my head right now. Be careful in there.
Megan, as we wrap up here, I know you have a unique position, right? You're mom and you also coach. You're a coach, right?
Yeah.
You coach your own children.
Yeah.
What are some words of wisdom, words of encouragement that you can provide right now for our viewers, listeners, your own team, our team, everyone out there?
In terms of like doing the sport, parenting the sport, like what?
Or how to handle this weird, crazy time that we're all in.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So
that too.
That too.
Yeah, that too.
And parenting the sport.
And parenting the sport. Well,
yes.
I'll go to that first because that's super easy. So my son was a little, chubby, he wore goggles with like penguins on them, and and he would actually come to the aqua aerobics, and like he was like the aqua aerobic mascot, so he would float around in his snorkel. Like seriously, he was like a super chubby baby. And so he would float really easily, and he would float around in his little snorkel and like paddle between the aqua aerobics people, and the music was playing, and it was just awesome. And I got to be with him. I was gonna, I'd drop him off at daycare after that, and we had a really good time. And I always just wanted to be able to share what I love with my kids. With Mia, it was a lot harder because she doesn't have access in the water, but she has access out of it because she has cochlear implants. So like swimming for my family with Diggory especially has always been something that he was kind of my backpack for a long time. And he just needed to come with me because I was a single parent until a year ago. Well, like 6 months ago. And so, yeah. So when I took over this team, he was like 11 or something. And he had sort of bounced around in swimming before, but, only if I was doing something at the pool. And I said to him that I would like to do this. I don't have to. If I do, then you need to come with me. You don't have to be in my group, and you don't have to have this be a passion. And I don't really, you can do whatever you want, but I know you like being in the water. I know it calms you. And that's where I'm going to be if we decide to do this. And I can't afford a babysitter if you don't come. So you let me know what you want to do. And I really didn't pressure him at all. I didn't. I really, truly, honestly didn't. It was a really honest conversation. Like, this is, in my family, like, from the time he was 2, it's just me. And so I think maybe a single parent family becomes awfully tight and awfully honest about what choices we have and what choices we don't have. Some people are like, oh, how do you do everything as a single parent and do it so well? And I'm like, it's not true. Like, I don't do it well. There's so many balls you have to drop. And there's so many things that they are not getting a 2-parent experience. Maybe there's some single parents out there that can do it. I can't. And I didn't. And that's a hard pill to swallow. But we had to make choices as a family. And this is one of the choices that we had to make. Mia was she was doing track at the time, and our neighbor was on the track team with her. So I knew that she was going to be taken care of with those aspects of after school. And so anyway, Diggory said, yeah, I'll do that. And so he did. He came to the water and he kind of bounced around, and we never talk about swimming outside of practice. I don't want to talk about swimming anymore outside of practice. I don't want to talk about it with my family. Like, I don't get a lot of family time. I didn't get a lot of family time. And I want to use that to snuggle and read a book and sit at the dinner table if we get a chance to do that, and just connect, because I didn't really have that parenting experience where I could just spend time with my kids. So, like now, I'll say ironically he's fast, because like you guys know that up until 16 months ago, he was not fast. I think people are going to say like, you know, when he does things that are special, like, oh yeah, Megan like coached her kid to be that, like Megan played Marinovich project with her kid, you know, or something. And it's so the opposite. Like he had to be at the pool because that's all I had, you know? So when Andrew and I were at the National Select Camp, I was gone that fall, like 6 out of 8 weekends. And Diggory and I are very tight. Like I said, it was me and him since he was 2 and my daughter was 5. And I was gone and gone and gone and gone and gone. And I was about to leave for junior nationals in Texas. And it was 3 days before. And he said, I want to come with you. And I'm like, no, you can't come with me. This is a work trip. And he's like, you have been gone all the time. You're always gone. And I don't want to go stay at, you know, so-and-so's anymore. I don't want to stay at the other person's anymore. I'm tired of it and I want to come with you. And if you know him, he's an awfully persistent kid, which, I mean, he is the most stubborn person I think I've ever met. And he was like, I'm coming. And so I said, okay, you come with. I bought him a ticket. And he came down and he got on deck and timed the 50 free. You remember seeing him on the deck? Yeah, I signed him up. He was a timer for the boys 50 free prelims on the first day. And at that point, his 50 free time, he was 13, and his 50 free time was a 25 flat yards. And there was something about that fall of like, okay, well, seriously, if I do want to be with my mom, I had better go to the pool. I didn't say that, but I think in his head, he was like, knock it off. If you're going to go, I'm coming with. And this is where you are. And this is what these people are doing. And therefore, that's what I'm going to do. And I swear to you, it's that simple for him. He is so headstrong and so like remember when I swam at Newport Hills and I told you he was in the guard room? One time he came out when I was swimming Saturday morning practice and he said, Mom, can I have a gumball? Because they had gumballs in the lobby. And I said, like, I was literally in the middle of a set. I'm on the wall for like 8 seconds. And I'm like, talk to me later. And so I'm done with the set. And he says, Mom, can I have a gumball? And I say, no, let me get out of the pool. And I was at the end of practice. Mom, can I have a gumball? And we went home and I didn't have a quarter. So we went home. Mom, do you have a quarter so we can go back and get a gumball? Literally all day until bedtime. Mom, can I have a gumball? And you think that's headstrong. But the next morning he woke up and before his eyes were open, he said, Mom, can I have a gumball? And I'm telling you, that's what happened in Austin, I think, was he said, I'm getting a gumball. And so he was in Seattle a year later.
Yep.
And I swear, I really do think people are going to say like, oh, well, that's a coach's kid. That's the Marinovich project right there. And like I said, I don't want to talk about swimming anymore. I want to talk about his grades. I want to talk about whether he's being a good person. I want to talk about if he's being a good friend. I want to tell him stories and I want to watch a movie and I want to laugh with him. And that's what we're doing right now in this COVID thing. Like I am working pretty hard to get my team sorted. And he does swim in the endless pool at home, but like, is my priority his dry land and his training and am I giving him a lesson every day? I'm not ever giving him a lesson. I don't know. I just don't, the cobbler's son has no shoes. I don't want to coach, yeah. So like my advice.
You don't want your relationship to become about the sport. You still want to be mom. And having the endless pool at your house really blurs a line that I could totally see you to want no part of.
Yeah.
It can blur a line and I don't want it to. I don't.
Hashtag dad perspective.
Yeah, right. This is that's my child, that's my little guy with like boogers out the nose and scraped knees and a, mom on my, he would say, under my eyebrows, every time I put on his penguin goggles, under my eyebrows, it's the first question he would ask. And then he'd get close to the water and ask one more time, under my eyebrows, and like, so when he went 20.6 in the 50 free at 14, all I felt was the same feeling I felt when he would ask me under my eyebrows. I was so thankful that I got to feel what other parents feel when their kid does a shiny thing of wonderfulness. I was like, my kid did a thing. I can't believe my kid did a thing. I get to experience that feeling and you know what? It made me more passionate about giving these kids a thing, because now I understand what their parents feel like. I hope their parents feel like that. I hope their parents feel like this little tubby snot-nosed skin-kneed baby who would like get lost in the locker room feels when their baby actually like does a thing. That's how I feel when he swims fast. So like in terms of like parenting and coaching or parenting in general, an athlete, gosh, just, yes, they're doing a thing, but like let the coach take care of the coach stuff. They need you. They need you to just love on them. And they don't need your swimming perspective. They have professionals who are mature, loving adults to guide them, and let that relationship take place, and keep yours pure. That's my advice for parents, I guess.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Great stuff. Megan, this has been incredible. And I know we can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to save this for another time. But
yeah.
Megan, I hope you're doing well. Please send our best to your
you.
family and your team. Hang in there.
Thank you. You too.
And we'll hopefully see you soon on deck. All right. Stay safe.
Hey, go Pacific Northwest. Keep it going over there, guys. Love it.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, Megan.
All right.
I reserve the right to attempt to work with you again.
Yeah. Sounds good. Please do. Please reserve that right. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.